Oh, goody.
All right, what is going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Mercenaries video. This one's going to be something a little bit different. This was actually an idea that was suggested to me on Discord about, new Mercenaries just dropped, and a very common question that I see from a lot of different people is, where should I be focusing my coins on levels and what abilities should I really be going for first. So basically, I figured we're going to just go through the abilities here on the 6 new mercenaries, and I'm just going to tell you, in my opinion, where I think you should be putting your coins to basically get them ready to use in PvE or PvP. I'm mainly going to focus this around PvP, as that's kind of what I'm going for, but usually it's not that different, unless there's like a certain strategy or combo you're trying to go for in specific, but this is going to be just more of a general guide. So we're going to get right into it here. Starting off with Kazakus, worth noting, Leroy is not going to be featured in here as Leroy is not out yet. He'll be dropping basically tomorrow, and I'll be having some guides up for the event and all that cool stuff. And maybe I'll do one just on Leroy himself once he's out, but we're just going to do the other 6 for now. So I also decided to put them in order of which mercs I think have the most potential out of the new bunch. So the order you're looking at here, from top to bottom, top is the merc I think has the most potential and the one I think you probably want to get ready first. And then bottom, that's probably the one I think you don't need to worry about prioritizing quite as much. So the one at the top here, Kazakus, I think Kazakus is an absolutely insane mercenary. He's pretty much the only one I've tried a little bit of in PvP so far, and the results have been pretty incredible. He's just been really, really good. Build a Golem is such an insane ability. The fact that you can make small golems that immediately die to feed your Diablo or your Sylvanas. You can make a big golem for a taunt that, or just some medium-sized golems with Divine Shield to mess up like Belira. It's really awesome the amount of flexibility that this character has, especially with things like Vol'jin speeding it up. So this is 1 speed with Vol'jin, which is insanity. So highly recommend doing Kazakus first. In terms of his abilities, basically what you want to be prioritizing out of his abilities are his first 2 abilities here. I think Build a Golem is his strongest ability, so I think that is the one you really want to focus on getting all the way up there first, as it is just, I think, clearly his most powerful ability. And then second strongest ability, definitely going to be Shadow Claw here. It's awkward doing this on turn 1 because 10 damage randomly is not very good, but once you've had a few golems die, even just using the Build a Golem once, this can be a lot of damage, especially if you are upping the damage with Mage Royal. So I think the 2 you really want to focus on are these 2. Honestly, as cool as True Shape is, and maybe there will be some utility for it eventually, I think you can kind of ignore this item in the beginning at least, because a lot of the Kazakus builds I'm seeing are really just focusing around these 2 abilities. So I'd work on getting these 2 up, and then maybe True Shape towards the end. In terms of equipment, basically, there are really only 2 choices here, in my opinion. I don't think King's Blood is very good. There's not really much need to speed up your golems, in my opinion. So I would kind of ignore this one, save this one for last, do everything else before it, including even True Shape. But you have to decide what you want to do with your Kazakus. I really have been liking Mage Royal, the extra damage, upping this from 6 damage to 10 damage repeating is quite a lot. So I've really been liking this. However, if you're going for a strategy that can make more use of the extra HP when Kazakus enters, then Wildvine is also a good choice. So this one's really going to come down to what builds you kind of want to use him in. However, what I've been messing around with, I do think Mage Royal is slightly better, but they're both very powerful equipment. But I would focus on one all the way, just get it all the way up and stick with that one before, rather than like splitting it up. So that's Kazakus. Awesome mercenary, I think the most powerful of the bunch. Then we have Nefarian here. So for Nefarian, we can see I don't have him quite as leveled as Kazakus yet, but I think Nefarian's home is going to be in Dragon decks. He just has so much dragon synergy, and He is our second start of the game effect. We haven't seen one of these since Cookie, and we saw how powerful it was with Cookie. So I could see this being very strong in dragon builds. So you can see I've actually maxed that out before any of these other ones. So if you're actually going to be planning on using him in dragon builds, it might be worth considering doing this one first, because this impacts all your other units, even when he's not off the bench. So that's pretty cool. Definitely recommend doing that one early on. Then in terms of the next abilities here, I think you don't need to worry about Draconoid Rush too much. I'd probably get up to at least level 3 if you can, because that does make the summon bigger, and you do want that. But once you get past 3, the additional stats aren't that much. So as long as you get that one up to 3, I wouldn't worry about like rushing it to 5. Chromatic Infusion, I haven't played a whole ton with this character in PvP yet, really at all. But I do think this is going to be a rather powerful ability, and out of all the abilities, it seems to scale up the most with its levels, because it is only getting 1 more attack each time, but that is actually pretty significant, especially if you have a lot of dragon summons, which is a very real possibility, some of these new units. And then Shadow Flame, I think Shadow Flame is actually one of the best, if not the best ability on Nefarian here, because it kind of works like Eudora cannons. But again, this one scales up damage not much once you get past level 3, so it goes from 13 to 14. So I think the general strategy here is try and get these all to level 3, and then depending on what you want to do, focus either Draconoid Rush for the bigger token, or Chromatic Infusion to steal more health, and then you can finish it off with Shadow Flame, and then you can do these 2 ones later. I think this is going to be the best equipment. And since, like I said before, it starts at the beginning of the game, you don't even have to have him out for it to be beneficial. If you're running a dragon comp, I do think this is probably the thing you want to focus on first. So yeah, that is Nefarian. You can do these 2 last just to finish him up maxing, but that is what I would recommend for him, and he does seem very strong. That's why I have him as the number 2 slot here. Next up is Deathwing. I think Deathwing also has a lot of power and potential in a dragon focus comp. Maybe even in Fel, but we haven't tried that yet, so as we can see, I didn't really focus on the Fel here, but I'm going to get to that one eventually. However, in terms of his abilities, basically with Deathwing, I think his skill 1 and his skill 3 are the 2 you really want to focus on the most at first. You know, Claws of Terror is rather powerful. I like this ability a lot, and because it is a rather powerful ability, I think the equipment you probably want to focus on first is Heart of the Unliving. We talked about it a bit on the podcast, but I think this is his best equipment. Anytime you're getting kind of the adjacent damage, and even upping that adjacent damage is very powerful. So I think that's going to be a pretty solid way to use Deathwing, especially when his other equipments are a little bit more build specific. This one is just kind of general good stuff. So definitely get that equipment up, and then I think I'd also focus on Destroy All Life. I only have it at level 4 here, but even that is not too bad, because like the other ones on Nefarian, it gets a little bit slower in the leveling up in terms of, I think it goes from 8 to 9 to 10, so the damage isn't that impactful, but I do think this is one of his best abilities, especially with the fact that more summons are going to be around in this kind of new meta, I think. So those are the 2 I think you really want to level up. And then after you get those and the equipment done, Elementum Armor is also pretty good. See here, mine is only at level 3, but the big thing about this one, I think, is more the just taunting when you need to taunt rather than the size of the Elementums. I don't think the Elementums are like particularly insane. It's a cool mechanic, but you have to be a little bit more weary of filling up your board now with things like Kazakus running around, because there's only 6 spots on the board, so you don't want to be overfilling your board with all these Elementiums if you need more board space for other things. So that's one thing to be aware of. So I'd probably do this skill last out of the bunch. So get skill 1, skill 3, and item 1 as kind of your focus. Then you can finish off Elementium Armor, and then lastly you can do kind of these equipments here. Next up you have Drek'Thar. So Drek'Thar, I think he has a fair amount of potential. I've seen mixed results in the few people I've talked with who have been running him. Wizard Beast was having some decent success with the Drek'Thar build, but I talked with Izzy's tonight, and he was saying how he was just not having a great time with Drek'Thar in Orcs or Frost. So he's another character I haven't had the chance to play with myself, so I'm kind of leaning on what some of the other good players I know have told me. But for Drek'Thar, I think the priority on him for sure is going to be Blood Frenzy here. Blood Frenzy is a very powerful ability, and the main reason it's powerful is because of his equipment. You can see I actually don't even have this equipment unlocked yet because I haven't task grinded Drek'Thar yet because I've been focusing on the dragons. But this is the equipment you want to level up first for sure. I think this is by far his best equipment. Arcane resistance isn't really that good. This one can be good, I think, but probably in a different kind of Drek'Thar build. So in terms of abilities, definitely do Blood Frenzy first, then probably Fell Corruption in terms of abilities. This ability seems pretty decent, and then the summon can be done last. I'd probably do the Glacial Blade before the summon, so maybe do Blood Frenzy first, then either item 1 or ability 3, and then once you have those 3 done, you can finish up on the summon here, and then finish out these 2 items last to max him. It's going to be interesting seeing if Drek'Thar is able to find a home, because Orcs have been kind of wanting another blue unit for a while, but I do think the fact that this attack is random is definitely going to make him a bit less impactful. However, we'll have to wait and see how much he ends up factoring into the new meta. But I do have him at 4 here because I think there is potential with this freezing equipment. As we've seen, Frost is very strong and freezing things is very strong. So even if you're doing it randomly, it's still denying an action a lot of the time, and that is a very powerful thing to do. So second to last here, we have Onyxia. I really, really like Onyxia. The reason she's this far down is because she is very squishy when she's not maxed. So if you can see, she has 65 total health. That is really, really not a lot of health. Like, think about a Valera swinging into that and critting it for 23 to 46. So 46 damage. That is literally, she'll feel at 21 health afterwards, and that's just Valera attacking. That's crazy. Like, it's just, I mean, if we look at some of the other units here, like, boom, 85 health, boom, even 70 health base is so much more. 70 health base, it's just, I really like her abilities, and I think she does have potential to be strong in the right comp, but 65 health, 70 at max is just a very, very low starting total. So for her abilities, I think basically you don't really have to focus on Insolent Mortals that much because the additional attack is based on the condition of taunt. So you're not actually upgrading the speed or the attack itself when you're upgrading this. So I don't think you really have to prioritize this one much at all. I would definitely recommend prioritizing these 2 abilities here. I think Cleanse the Nest is probably her strongest ability. Just a good AoE, scales off fire damage, which she can boost up herself, and summons at the end of it. If you get a death blow, it's pretty cool, and I think pretty powerful. So I think this is her skill that I would focus on first, and then this is probably the skill I would do second, because the potential for additional damage and after healing herself up is really, really strong if you can get her to stick around. So that can turn, if you do heal for 15 health, I can turn this into a 30 damage AoE, which is a lot of damage. You're suddenly critting reds for 60 damage. So that's pretty nuts. So those are the 2 skills I'd focus on first. And then I would probably focus on this after the 2 skills. Passive, after another friendly dragon dies, deal 7 to all enemies. So this has a lot of synergy with the summons that she can get off of that death blow and the summons that Nefarian can make, as well as if any of your other dragons happen to die. So for that reason, I think this is her best equipment and probably the one I'd prioritize. So I'd prioritize these 2 abilities and this equipment first. Then you can probably do Insolent Mortals after that, as the extra attack is nice. It's just not worth prioritizing with like your early coins if you want to start playing them as soon as possible, because taunt doesn't really come up a whole ton, at least in the last meta and the early things I've seen of this meta. And then lastly, you can focus on these 2 equipments to finish up maxing her out. And then our last Merc of the bunch here, excluding Leroy, is Vanndar Stormpike. As you can see, much like Drek'Thar, he's the one I've kind of neglected. I've been focusing on the dragons, so I don't even have his task 2 yet done, but we'll get there soon enough. In terms of his abilities, I think it's hard to say for sure, but I think the best ability on Vanndar is probably Avatar here. The fact that it goes from 1 attack, 2 attack, 3, and then I think the last one's 5. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's 5, and it gets increased by health lost. I think this is the reason you play Vanndar in comps, and he's probably a bench unit, but this can scale up a insane potential amount of damage. So I think this is probably the best one you want to be upgrading in terms of his abilities. Then next, I'd probably just do Thunderous Strike, dealing 4 damage on top of the attack and to adjacent enemies is strong, and the speed being slow is also nice. However, the speed doesn't get any higher in terms of slowing them. No matter how much you upgrade it, it's always going to be 1 speed. So all you're upgrading with this is the damage, but it's still worth doing. So those are the 2 abilities I'd focus on. And then in terms of equipment, you can kind of take your pick here. I personally am most interested in this one because I think giving him additional attack and locking out the ability to freeze him is pretty strong. So that is probably the equipment I would focus on. However, I think the taunt one also has potential in the right build. Being able to taunt without having to use a skill is not something we've really seen in Mercenaries outside of Mukla's big brother. So I think there is potential with this. So if you're looking to do a taunt focused build, maybe you can focus on this one instead, or a build rather where you need a good taunt that's not Cornelius. So that could be worth considering if that is the kind of thing you're going for. I don't think Avatar of Stormpike is very good, and there's not a lot of storm or dwarf synergy going around right now, so you can probably save this one for the last. Push forward, this is a really weird ability to me, because obviously it will buff himself if he has taunt, but if you're not running taunt, then you have to basically have another character with taunt to even have this skill do anything other than just be a regular attack, and he already has a better way of attacking with Thunderous Strike, even though it's 1 speed slower. So I think this ability is not that great and probably the last thing you should focus on in terms of skills. So do Thunderous Strike, do Avatar as your first 2 abilities, and then you can focus on either the anti-freeze and extra attack or taunt and extra health, depending on what kind of build you want to use them in, and then you can finish it off with the Avatar of Stormpike one if you are trying to max him. So that's all the new Mercs. Hopefully this was, a little bit helpful, giving some insight into where I think the coins should go. Definitely don't need to, max all these characters and stuff before you can start messing around with them in PvP. Like, I know Wizard Beast has been doing a bunch of testing already with a lot of, lower skill abilities on the Mercs, and even with that, some of these comps have actually been really cool and rather successful against some of the meta stuff. So don't feel like you have to get everything up before you can start testing stuff in PvP or PvE. Even just getting things up to, I'd say level 3 is kind of the level you want to get them up to. Once you get them to there, you should be able to play with a lot of these characters, and a lot of them, they really just have 2 main abilities that you want to focus leveling and 1 good item, or in Kazakus' case, choose the best item that suits your needs out of these 2. But basically, most of them just choose the 2 skills that you want to get leveled up, that are the best skills, and then do the item after, and then everything else can come afterwards. So that's kind of my advice on where you want to spend those early coins to make the new Mercs playable. Hopefully this was of some use to you. If it was, do remember to like and subscribe. Really does a ton to help out the channel and keep the Mercs videos coming. That's going to do it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.